Okay, here we go. Okay, yay, I'm so excited. Okay, so, Harv, why don't you start by just telling us who you are in the world of Survivor, and also who you are outside the world of Survivor.
Sure. I'm Parvati. People know me as the kind of the ultimate female Survivor winner. I won my second season of Survivor when I was 25 by gathering the women together. And we created this really powerful alliance of women who all had really unique and strong skill sets individually. We came together and voted out all the guys who were the competitive threats to win that game. And we made this really historical move where we blindsided this poor little guy named Eric. And he had won immunity, which meant that he would be safe in the game. And we all came together. There were four of us women, the Black Widow Brigade. We came together and convinced him to give up his immunity necklace to one of the women named Natalie. And then we promptly voted him out of the game in a pretty brutal blindside to keep the four women together in the end. So that is, I think, what I'm most known for. And then I went on to play another season of Survivor called Heroes versus Villains. And I was cast as a villain that season. And I don't know, I didn't think that the label really fit me at the time. I was like, I don't really think I am a villain. But as the game played out, I realized what that meant. Being labeled a villain was it just gave me complete freedom. I didn't have to perform in a certain way or try to look good or be good. I could do the things that I needed to do to advance me in the game. So I ended up making it all the way to the end of that game, even though I had been targeted very early on as a threat, and people were trying to vote me out every single time we went to tribal council. And then I went on to play another season of Survivor. So all in, I've played four different seasons of Survivor. The last season I played was Winners at War when I had just become a new mom. So I left my daughter, who was 10 months old, to go play that game, which was really intense. I wouldn't really recommend that for people,
Yeah.
but I had to do it. It just felt like I couldn't miss that season. Yeah, so four seasons of Survivor. I've made quite a name for myself in that arena. And now I work as a life coach, business coach, and I support people in full transformation of their lives. Most of my clients come to me when they're feeling either stuck or they've reached a plateau and they want to expand their careers or move into a creative field that they've never done before, or they want to change their relationships or make a big move in their lives. And I'll support people in making those big dramatic changes in their lives and becoming more empowered in themselves and more aligned with their truth so that they're living their lives the way that they want to live instead of the way that they've been programmed or society tells them is appropriate for them to live. And the way that I do that is I incorporate yoga, breath work, meditation, embodied therapy practices. It's a lot of embodied work to get people grounded inside their skin, feeling safe in their skin so they can feel their emotions and be guided by the wisdom of their emotions.
Mm.
And they take steps from a place of centeredness in themselves, first and foremost. Yeah,
Mhm.
I do speaking, workshops, events. I've kind of created this really beautiful dream career for myself. I'm very happy about it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And like in the context of, you said you help people get more comfortable in their skin and go after what they want and get what they want. And I can say that for myself too, because I've done coaching with you and I've had that experience. But how do you feel like Survivor, like this whole lifetime, because you've spent a lot of time playing the game of Survivor and in the game aftermath of it, how do you feel like that helps you to coach people?
Well, it's pretty interesting because a lot of my clients come to me because they know who I am from Survivor. So they're drawn to me because they watched me play that game with a certain characteristic. I showed up in a highly competitive arena, where there's a lot of scarcity. So there's a lack of resources, there's competition for resources, there's competition to get ahead. And there's also the social dynamic of you have to work with lots of different types of people, find ways to bond with different types of people, and create relationships with them in order to move ahead in the game. And at the same time, you're also competing against those people, and only one person can win. And that arena of Survivor is very similar to the world of business that we operate in. It's very similar to what we've been taught is how we get ahead in life, in our careers in general. And I think in society, there's this mindset of not enough, not enough. If you're dating in the dating world, it's like, oh, there's not enough good guys or girls out there. They're all the good ones are taken, or they don't live in my city. So starting to shift the mindset away from not enough is really supportive and helping people to just access the truth that you are always connected to sufficiency. If you're grounded in a place of looking for what is working in your life and what you do have, then you can really start to build more from that place. And it's a complete and total transformation from going from not enough, scarcity, to shifting over to sufficiency. Oh, yeah, I do have enough. And then from there, building and creating. So if I can do it in this arena of Survivor that's highly charged, highly competitive, and you really don't have enough food and water and there's no
Mhm.
shelter, then people can do it in their daily lives where you
Mhm.
actually, like, you can walk to the fridge and grab water and a snack if you need it. Your basic needs are typically, for the most part, met in
Right.
society for all of us. So I think that people see that what I was able to accomplish in Survivor, and I was really joyful as I competed throughout that game. I loved it. And I demonstrated endurance, and I demonstrated adaptability and flexibility. And when I was knocked down, I didn't take that to mean, oh God, my game is over, everything's horrible. It was like, how can I see this challenge that I didn't foresee as something that's helpful for me? So I just help people kind of shift it. It's not that big of a shift for most people. It's just sort of like, this is the story that I tell. If you're a fly who gets caught in a room and you're just buzzing around like you can't find the way out, and you're just banging against a closed window nonstop, you're going to be exhausted. But if you turn around and you see there's a door behind you that's open, you can just fly right out. But most people don't know that there's a door behind them that's open. So they just keep banging into the window thinking, oh, if I bang hard enough, if I push harder, then I can get out of this
Mhm.
window. It looks like it's a way out, but the window's sealed shut. So you really need some support to help you just turn the lens slightly so that you can see another way. And then you can get out. And it's wild how quickly people can transform their lives when they just make those simple shifts in perception.
Yeah. That's an interesting anecdote with the or the metaphor about the fly and just
Right.
like a perspective shift. Yeah. And going back to like the charged environment of Survivor, because you're right, it is like when you put it that way, because obviously looking at Survivor as a audience member from my warm couch with my popcorn on my lap, like I'm like, this is another world. Like I can't even imagine being there. But when you say it like that, it's like normal life, but amplified. It makes sense. And one thing that I think of a lot in the context of like my work and fawning and all of that is like, how the hell do you guys navigate fawning in this very real life example of like taking us back to the roots of like, why did we fawn in the first place? Like, why was fawning even a thing? So we wouldn't get cast out of the tribe. Like,
Mm,
that's literally like the root of that. So when I watch Survivor and I watch you just deal with like all of the malice that was thrown your way, especially on heroes versus villains, it's like so impressive. So like, how did you navigate that whole function of like, you know, balancing getting people to like you enough to keep you in the game and accepting that, there was people that right from the get-go wanted you out.
Yeah, I think that fawning is one of the most helpful survival adaptations that we have. It's so adaptive. And I recently read, like, I've read a couple of stories about fawning just to kind of explain how supportive it is. It's
Mhm.
like when a rapist comes in and attacks you, let's say, like, you're being attacked by a rapist wants power over. They're not looking for like true intimacy. So if a rape victim or someone who's about to be raped is turns it around and is like, oh yeah, like I really want this. I can't, I've been waiting for this for so long. It befuddles the rape. Like this has actually happened, where there's scientific, like there's proof that it befuddles the rapist's mind. And then the rapist is like, wait, what? Like, okay. And then some people have saved themselves from being raped because they are fawning with their rapist, or domestic abuse survivors. When you're in an environment where your partner is abusive, if a person can be really sweet and mirroring that, like that, oh, I'm not a threat, like I'll please you, whatever you need, I'll take care of it. It tends to keep a person alive in those kinds of real life or death survival circumstances. So with the game of Survivor, it's not really life or death, but as a contestant, it can feel that way.
Yeah, totally.
It really feels that way in my body when I play Survivor, because I mean, the game feels so real. And then when your torch is snuffed and you're voted out, it's like you're dead. It feels so real.
Yeah,
So there isn't like that actual like threat to your life, but it feels that way. So for me, I think my fawning adaptation, I'm just good at it. It's like something that comes really naturally for me. I know that you and I have talked about being voted friendliest in high
oh
school. We
yes,
were
yeah,
both.
yeah.
I like set that as my mind. I knew that friendliest was a superlative in high school as an award, and I was like, I gotta win that.
Yeah, and you did.
And I did. I made it a game for myself. Like, how likable can I be that people actually vote for me to win this award? And I did win it. So I'm just really naturally good at that survival adaptation. Some people are better at
Mhm.
fight. Some people are better, or like fawn is more instinctive, but fight or flight or freeze, right? So
Mhm.
fawning is probably my number one. And it doesn't even require thinking for
Yeah.
me. It's very instinctive.
Mm.
So, I mean, I used to have this all the time where if I would go to dinner with a group of people that I didn't know, I would instantly be like high wattage, big smile, like my biggest personality, laughing at jokes, cracking jokes, like butterflying from one person to the next where no one could catch me for too long. Like people would want more of me and I would just like flitter away. I knew exactly how to play that game. And it was very effective for helping me win Survivor, because it really is a popularity contest in the end, that game. So the
Yeah,
more likable you can be and the more respected you can be at the end of the game, you're going to win people's votes.
totally.
But then I realized when I came back from playing Survivor that there was this huge disconnect from the public persona that I was portraying, this like
Mhm.
mask that I would put on to show up with other people, and how I felt inside. And the split started to impact my mental health. And I started to feel really disjointed inside. And that affected my confidence. So when I would go out in the world, I would be totally insecure internally because I was like, I'm not being real.
Mm.
I'm not actually feeling this happy and positive right now. I'm feeling kind of low and crappy, but I would force myself to put this big smile on my face because it was really all I knew how to connect with people and build relationships was from that fawn response.
Mm.
So I had to do a lot of work. I did. I worked with a hypnotherapist. I worked with a coach. I worked with a somatic experiencing practitioner. I've been doing a lot of embodied therapy and yoga and meditation to just tune myself into how I felt inside. so that I could just even feel my own feelings.
Mhm.
Because when we're in survival mode, that's the first thing that goes. We just numb or dissociate. We
Yeah.
leave our bodies, and or we put on that armor. So we don't feel what's really happening inside of us. We're just armored, and all we care about is other people's perception of us. So I had to do a lot of work to start to get reconnected to my own feelings. And then from there, I could start to be honest about who I was in the world and just show up with however I was feeling and let that be okay. And
Mhm.
let other people's responses to me be their responses. And I didn't take it personally, and I didn't make it mean, I didn't make it mean anything about my worth, whether people liked me or didn't like me.
Yeah.
But I really had to learn that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Especially after getting voted friendliest in high school and having that be like the biggest like validation stamp of like people like me. Look, I have it on paper in
A
the
plaque.
yearbook. I'm super nice and people love me. And then going on Survivor and being like, I feel like the first 2 seasons you were on, there was a pretty positive response to you from the cast. That's what it seemed like as a viewer. And then on Heroes versus Villains, I felt like a big shift. So this work that you're talking about, where you basically were like building your capacity to be yourself and accept people's honest opinions about your honest self, had you done that before you went on Heroes versus Villains, or was that season kind of a shock to you? um for like, as so it sounds like it was just like a real life lesson in forcing you into that space then.
I had a really hard time with Heroes versus Villains when I came home because I was so hated. I really was. And even playing my first 2 seasons, it was kind of split. Like half the people loved me and half the people loathed me. So there was no real in between. I was very polarizing for people. So I started to get a taste of being hated from my first 2 seasons. But my third season, Heroes versus Villains, when I came back and that show aired, or even like playing the game, the contestants hated
Mhm.
me. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh wow, it felt so bad. And you can even see this at the merge episode where no one was talking to me. And I was like, oh my God, this is what it feels like to just be totally rejected and outcast.
Mhm.
And I was fighting back tears. And at one point, my friend Danielle came up to me and she was talking to me. And I was like, I can't talk to her because I'll cry. So I had to lock up my emotions and walk away. And then I did an interview with the producers and I was like, I'm going to vote out all these heroes. I was like so angry how they were treating me. Yeah, it was like a wake up call where it felt really, really bad. And I didn't have a sense of self that I valued and liked enough at the time. Like I didn't like myself enough for it to be okay that people hated me. It wasn't okay with me that people hated me. So when I came back from Heroes Villains, I made it my mission to do things that would make people respect me and like me. So I started creating, I don't know if you've heard this saying, but I really like this saying. Are you creating from your wound or your worth?
Mm.
And I started creating from my wound. Like people don't like me. So now I have to do things that prove that I'm likable, that I'm a good person, so that people will like me again and people will know I'm a good person. And then from there, I can think of myself as a good person.
Mhm.
And I started making some really misaligned choices. Um, and it just wasn't really what I wanted to do, but I was doing them because I thought it looked good for me to do these things. I opened up a business that was really just a lot of work and so wrong for me. I opened up a wellness center and I had to be there every day from like 6 a.m. to midnight
Oh my
running the
God.
studio. And I don't know, you know me, Callie. I am not someone who likes going to the same place day in and day out. Like it felt like I built my own prison for
Yeah.
myself. So, and it was a lot of work and it was a lot of money that I invested in it. And I just was like, it was like I was paying a penance
Mm.
for like, oh, people don't like me. So I'm must be a bad person. So let me let me prove my worth by how much I can suffer.
Yeah.
And I did that for a while. I really did. And I've only recently come out of it, truly, where I can have enough space now away from that time in my life where I can see, oh, like how poorly I treated myself. It was like other people were treating me badly. So I agreed with that. And then I started treating myself badly, which I think we all do at some point in time, right? In our lives.
Yeah.
We actually like, we believe the bad things that other people say about us because we don't feel good about ourselves for whatever reason. And then it takes some real work and some support from really intelligent people in our lives who can reflect to us, no, you're so much better, more valuable. You deserve so much better than that. So I had an awesome support system that helped me through that.
That's great.
But I was in a dark place for a while. It's hard to be disliked. It's really hard.
Yeah. And one thing that's coming up for me as you're saying this is like the feeling of, if I'm so hateable, this is what I've experienced in my personal life, and you were there for me this whole last year, so I know you know what I'm talking about. But like, I must be so hateable and so terrible that, do I even deserve to have a happy life, or do I need to suffer? Because obviously people have issues with me. And is that reflection of me, them? At that point, I didn't know. I just felt, wow, there's a lot of hate towards me. And does that mean I need to suffer? And honestly, watching you in the last, like, at that retreat in October, just like shining and joyful, I was like, wow, like, you get so much hate, like, just through your experience. Obviously, Heroes versus Villains is like a resume for that. But I was like, she's allowed to claim this joy and pleasure, and so I can too. And there's almost like, I feel like that's the biggest fu to the people that hate you, is just saying I can have the most pleasurable, delicious life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's so powerful. It's wild too because it's not even like you're trying. I know you, Kelly. You're not trying to take vengeance on anyone. You don't care. You want to feel good and you want to have a life that's joyful and adventurous and uplifting where you can support other people to get there too. Once you claim that and mark that as your North Star, like I want to enjoy my life to the max capacity.
Mhm.
Other people's opinions just hold much less weight. They just don't affect you as much anymore. So people will continue to say all these crappy things about you, but it won't matter because you will like yourself. You'll respect yourself because you're making choices that are true for you. You're not making choices that are thinking about, well, what's someone going to think about me if I do this? Because as soon as you get out of your
Mhm.
own space and you're
Yeah.
thinking in someone else's head about what someone else is going to think about you, you've lost your power. You've
Mhm.
completely separated from your power. And now you're at the mercy of forces that are outside of your control. You can't control what someone else thinks about you. So the sooner you can let that go and detach from what other people think, you can really claim that pleasurable life and that big, beautiful, joyful experience of your life. And you can really have a lot of fun
Mhm.
and be super playful. And I think what's really helped me get here is looking at my daughter and seeing
Mhm.
how I want to model for her what an adult woman looks like. Like I want her to know that when she's an adult woman, she can do things that are just for her. She can have a gorgeous group of friends. She can do things that she's interested in. And they don't have to be productive. They don't have to help anyone else necessarily. They don't have to have any impact on the world around her. It can be just for her. And she can do that because she wants to. And that's really what I've been practicing for the past couple of years, especially since I've gone through my divorce, is just coming into a place of, well, what do I want for me? Who do I want to spend time with? I've really become super clear. And Adam Grant helped me with this too. He is a Wharton professor, and he wrote a book called Give and Take. And he clarified this distinction for
Mhm.
me. There are people that are givers and there are people that are takers. And if you're a giver, you will naturally attract takers because that's the dynamic that you're most comfortable with, is giving. You're not necessarily super comfortable with receiving if you're a giver. So really, if you're stuck in that dynamic of, I'm a giver, so now I'm attracting takers, and you're constantly giving to other people who are never satisfied, it's a trap. And you're never going to be able to claim that beautiful life that you want because you won't have any energy to do that. So I've gotten really clear in my own boundaries and
Mhm.
in my own life that I no longer engage with takers, like at all. If I notice that someone is a person who is not um, in a space of generosity in their own life, then I'm not going to hang out with you.
That's a
If
big
I,
shift after
yeah,
being friendliest in high school, where like
totally. I'm like,
everyone's your friend.
I don't need everyone to be my friend. And if I see someone, here's how I distinguish between givers and takers. If I'm going out to dinner with someone, say someone who I'm just meeting, and I leave that encounter feeling drained, that person is not someone I want to hang out with again. Just like point blank, clear.
Mhm.
And I just won't. And I don't need to be mean about it. I can just say, like, this isn't really a fit for me. Or I'm really spending a lot more time focusing on being with my daughter or work. And I just don't have time to go to dinner anymore. And I just let it go. And they just kind of go away and they'll find someone else. So I think that's something that's been super supportive for me, is just getting clear on that distinction and what you're willing to give and where your boundary is around that.
Yeah, I think we did that in the coaching, the givers and takers. I know with Marianne, we did that too. And I really liked that language because I feel like the word narcissist and narcissism is like everywhere on social media. And it's obviously, someone with actual narcissistic personality behavior can have a lot of destruction in relationships. But also, I think by labeling it that, like narcissism, we start to hate it in ourselves as well
Mm,
and start labeling everyone in our lives narcissists, da 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 da. And I really like the givers and takers because it's less about them and more about like how do they make me feel? Like you said,
okay.
it's not a fit. It's almost like not even personal. It's just not a fit.
It's not actually, nothing is personal, like nothing. Because what you do is about you, and how you communicate is all about you and your level of awareness and consciousness. And what other people do is about them. It's never personal. And that's also been something that's been super helpful for me too. It's like, if somebody doesn't like me, okay, that's, it's actually okay. It's really not about me anyways. I recognize that I am someone who stands in my confidence and in my self-expression, and I'm going to share my opinions and I'm going to be myself, and that can be unsettling for some people, and some people don't like it, especially people who haven't practiced self-expression and authenticity in their own life. Some people will feel upset about me and how I navigate the world. And you know what? That's okay. I realize I can be very triggering. And you know what? I also has been super helpful for me in this process of reclaiming myself and not having to be the friendliest and be liked by everybody, is really starting to get super playful about life and see the humor in these situations. I don't know. Do you remember there was a social media feud in
Yeah,
January?
yes, yes. You mean the one with Sandra? Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So Sandra was the winner of Heroes versus Villains, for those of you who have not seen Survivor. And she and I were at the final together, and she ended up winning, and I got second place. And Russell was also with us. He got he didn't get any votes. But Sandra won the game. So she became the first 2-time Survivor winner. And since then, a lot of time has passed, and fans of the show and even like media and critics say that I deserved to win that season. It was sort of a bitter jury. So I think Sandra has always
Yeah.
wanted to like kind of prove that she deserved
Mhm.
her crown, which fine, like whoever wins Survivor, I think deserves it. So I got a DM from someone on Instagram that had screenshotted this. Sandra had been in like a Facebook message board, and she was like trashing me, saying, yeah, Parvati's not nice. She's like, if you had been on the island with her, you would know she's not nice. So I was like, oh man, do I engage with this or do I just let it go? My normal tendency would be just like, whatever, who cares, let it go. But I'm on a text thread with Tyson and Rob and Ethan and Rachel, Tyson's wife. And Tyson messages all of us, and he screen grabbed it too and said, Parv, you and Sandra beefing? I said, I guess we are now. just and I just went for it. And I was like, yeah, I'm not like, call me anything, but don't call me nice. Nice girls don't win Survivor.
I
Like
love
we
that.
gotta let go of trying to be nice girls. It's not like something we need to be reaching for as like a valuable
As
quality.
though calling you not nice means that you're morally inferior is like the vibe that I'm getting from that comment. You know what I mean? Is like, well, she's not nice. She's not deserving of good things, basically, is
It
the
was like,
vibe I get from that.
yeah, it was like you wouldn't like her. Like if you really met her, you wouldn't like her. So that's a trigger for me, like not what?
Knife to the
You're
heart.
saying I'm not likable? Let me quickly prove how likable I am. No, and then I just like dove into it and I was like, don't call me nice. Like I don't like I'm actually okay with that now. So I really dove in and I started having a lot of fun with it. And I posted it on my Instagram, and then fans jumped in and started making all these really hilarious fan videos. And it was like, who's the true queen? And they were calling me the true queen. And it was like me versus Sandra. And then Us Weekly picked it up, and it was like Parv and Sandra are feuding. And I was like really having the time of my life with this feud. And then I text Sandra, I'm like, hey, are you having as much fun with this as I am? She's like, oh, it got out of hand.
Why did she say it got out of hand?
Because I don't think she intended for me to ever even see that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like on an obscure message board on Facebook.
I wouldn't have seen it. But I was having such a blast. And then I realized like she's not having as much fun as I am. I let it play for another day. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to end the feud.
Shut it down.
But like that too, it's like if somebody is coming at you and you can turn it into a game and make it something that you can enjoy. Like I offer this to my clients who are getting out of relationships that have been really painful and tricky. I've offered this to a client who recently was like scared to get divorced. She's like, what are people going to think of me? And I'm like, well, let's give you a villain persona. Put on what would your villain persona look like? Would you be like Catwoman? Would you be Uma Thurman from Pulp Fiction? Like, who would be your ultimate villain? Let's like give you her outfit. Like, what would be her playlist? What songs, what kind of music does she listen to? How does she move in the world? Like, how does she interact with people when she goes and gets coffee? What does her voice sound like? What kind of words does she use when she speaks? So we really make her super clear. And then my client stepped into this aspect of herself. And I was like, are you wearing leather boots? Like, what are you wearing? And she like had this whole outfit. She made a villain playlist for herself. She was playing the music in the morning when she woke up. She was walking around the world in this garb, right? In her villain costume. And it gave her this sense of self that she was powerful, that she could get out of this marriage that she didn't want to be in, that wasn't healthy for her anymore. She could express herself and say the things that she needed to say because it wasn't really her that was saying it. It was this villain. And of course, the villain wouldn't have any problem
Mhm.
saying what she wanted and dressing however she wanted and not caring about what anyone thought of her. So she played this part, we gamified it, and she ended up making real changes in her life from that. So I think that playful aspect is just so helpful.
Yeah, like leaning into it. That's one thing I think I learned from our coaching is like, how can you lean into it? How can you get pleasure? Like I have some key people in my life that really dislike me and they've expressed it clearly. And it's like, there's truly nothing I can do. And at one point it was extremely painful. And now it's kind of like, well, how can I lean into it and like get some pleasure out of it? Because it is what it is, you
If
know?
they're already going to hate you, how can you be extra hateable?
Yes.
Like, why not?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally the playfulness really helps. And that's what we'll be doing too in our course, like plug how villains are made, is all of these concepts that we've been talking about, is like the resourcing with pleasure and glimmers, like resourcing your nervous system so that you actually have the capacity to um do the playfulness and receive the backlash that happens when you start setting boundaries, saying no, and all of that goodness. So I'm excited for it. Is there anything particular that you are excited about for the course?
I'm really excited to see people's villain persona, like what costumes people choose, what music people choose, like how people really create this version of themselves, like they're playing this game out in the world. And I'm excited to take people like a real life circumstance that someone in our course is struggling with and empower them with this aspect of themselves so that they can, just like the fly at the beginning of our
Mhm.
conversation, just kind of shift their perception of who they are and how they're dealing with this problem or this challenge, and then show up to it with more power and more playfulness to completely transform the dynamic of their experience. That's one thing I'm really excited about because it's so cool to see how people can shift so rapidly.
Yeah, definitely. And I think especially in this work, doing the playfulness and the lean in and parts work, really, you start to eliminate this like inner tension that exists for us people pleasers of oh, someone thinks I'm bad, I have to fight against that, and almost like surrendering to this. And you said this the other day in a coaching session. You said, if you see the Buddha, what was it? If you see Buddha on a road, kill it.
Yeah.
And it's basically like, well, why don't you explain that? Because honestly, I don't fully remember exactly what the lesson was, but
I've heard this saying many times, and it always has stuck out to me because I'm like, wait, why would
it's
we?
intense.
So if you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. And I'm like, wait, what? Wouldn't you want to sit at his feet and worship him? But really, the intention, like the seed of truth inside of that is there's no better teacher for you than you. And if you meet someone who you idolize and worship and think, oh, like this person has the answers for me, you can get trapped in giving that person your authority, and your sense of self can actually now be entwined in someone else, which is, it's misaligned. So if you meet the, like, we're meant to meet teachers on the road, we're meant to learn from other people, but at the same time, always when you're working with a teacher, stay connected to your own center and your own truth, because you're going to outgrow your teachers. And that's my goal with all of my coaching clients and all of my the people that I work with, is that they outgrow the work that we've done together and they grow beyond what I'm able to support them with, and they go out and meet new teachers and they teach other people and they serve and grow. So it's really about, don't get stuck. Like, don't get stuck thinking this shiny object is the way for you. Like, hold your center, take in the wisdom and the knowledge, and then carry on.
Hmm. Yeah, I love that. When
Is
you
that what
said
you got
that,
out of it too? Or did you get something different?
I got, well, because it was in the context of someone saying that they had this dream and they were like trying, knocking on the dream's door again, and constantly saying no. And I feel like in a traditional coaching context, and I messaged you this after, the coach would say, you got this, Jessica, keep beating down the door, believe in your dreams and manifest 1111, blah, blah, blah. And
Right.
you were like, you said, you're like, it's time to kill the dream. And I just remember like, it took me, I was watching the recording of that session and I was like, wait, what? Like, wait a minute, she said? And you're like, kill the dream, kill the Buddha. That's what I got from that for me, and what I got from it was, I am adding so much tension to my life, my body, by pining after these people who don't like me, and they've expressed it. It's clear, bam, done. And what if I just killed the dream and surrendered to it? And that's what you were talking about. And I love that.
Right. That's,
Yeah.
yeah, that is one of the most powerful things that I learned through my divorce, honestly, was my marriage wasn't going to work. Like this dream of this family that I'd had since childhood, of having this nuclear family with a husband and kids and a white picket fence, it wasn't working. So if I kept fighting for it, I would be just completely draining myself more and more and more. And I would be losing out on any opportunity to have any other dream come true. So sometimes we get stuck on one dream. It's like, this is the thing. Like, I know a lot of people want to compete on Survivor and they make application after application, video after video. And it's like, really, what's what's underneath that dream? What is it that you're longing for on a deep, deep, deep level? For me, with my marriage and family, was like, I want to feel real love, real partnership. I want to feel what it's like to build a community and like have that with my children and have that with people around me who are really
Mhm.
loving, really supportive, and growing in the same direction so that we can expand together and support one another. So that's really what was underneath my dream of the family. But I was so caught up in what it looked like. I was so caught up in, it has to be this family, that it was keeping me stuck and filling me with so much tension and angst and
Mm.
anguish. So as soon as I let that dream die, like I actually kill it. I think about it as a hot air balloon. I even wrote a poem about it in a creative writing class, which we will also do in the villains course. We'll do a
Mhm.
creative writing process that will help people kill their dreams. And it's like liberating. It's so
It's
liberating.
it's so
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
So I just like took a knife, stabbed my hot air balloon, let it die. And as it did, it was like this huge wave of relief in my body that was like, I'm not fighting for this thing that's not fighting for me. Like, I'm
Mm.
not fighting for this thing that's not working for me anymore, or it's not going to fight back for me. I'm going to let it go. I'm going to let it die. And alongside that is a ton of grief. It's
Yes.
like anger, rage, grief, sadness, all despair, all of those feelings are mixed up in letting your dream die. And then once you move through those emotions, the smoke starts to clear. And I did have this also vision that I was like picking through rubble at one point where I was like, what? It was like a bombed city. Just
Mm.
like looking through the rubble and seeing like what was salvageable. And there wasn't really anything. So I started over from nothing. And it's awesome, actually. I'm on the other side of it now. So that's what I think qualifies me to guide people through this and to support people. And like, this is the most liberating, powerful thing that you can do,
Yeah.
is kill your dream if it's not going to work. If it's
Yeah.
out of your control, if it's not happening, kill it.
Mhm. Totally. That's why I love your style of coaching, because it's so like I don't, maybe alternative's not the right word, but it's so like shocking sometimes to hear. And then I'm like, but then it lands so well like in my body, and I'm sure in a lot of other people's experience. So
Well, what's amazing too, Callie, is when you get through, after you've killed the dream that's not working, it's not happening, and you kill it, then there's so much energy and space and possibility that's available for you. You can actually have the dream that you wanted. It's not going to look exactly the same, but the underlying feelings that you are reaching for with that original dream, you can have those. It'll show up for you, and it'll show up in a surprising way, probably.
Mhm.
And I think that's what that open space occurs once we've gone through that process of grief after the dream dies. And then there's like, oh God, look how many people love you now. Look how likable you are to yourself first. And then from there, that's really how you're creating all of this beautiful friendship and love and family, chosen family in your
Mhm.
life, right? Like you're getting to fulfill those deeper longings that you thought the dream was going to give you through this other avenue.
Yeah. So amazing. So we're going to be doing that for sure in How Villains Are Made if you're listening to this. And um if you are listening to this as well, we also have a free webinar coming up on May 16th. So next week. I think
Mm,
it's a Tuesday. At 1 p.m. Pacific time, and it's free. So literally no reason not to come. You'll get a recording if you register. So definitely register for that. It'll be like a taste of what we're doing in the 8-week course. And any final thoughts on on anything that we've talked about, anything else, and then also our course.
yeah, I'm excited to work with you on this course because you have really come through the gauntlet over the past couple of years since I first met you and worked with you.
Yes.
So I would love to hear a little bit from you about the work that you are going to be showing up with for the group.
Yeah, so I feel like we've had very similar journeys, like even just hearing you lay it out the way you have in the last like half hour. Um so life experience obviously is what I bring to the table, like similar, obviously not on the same magnitude of like the entire nation having beef with me, which is pretty incredible that you survived that and are now thriving. But yeah, on a micro level in my own life, a similar reflection of that experience. And then for me, what I resonated with the most when I was at my like darkest was somatic work, so body-based work and parts work, which is like similar to the idea of basically we have all these parts within ourselves and oftentimes we subconsciously exile them out. So I have like the narcissistic part of me, the inner villain part of me in the context of fawning, like I have the part of me that's running the show, the fawner, and then I have a part of me that already exists, that doesn't give a crap what people think. She is okay saying no, all these things. She has so much power, but because that didn't feel safe when I was younger, and obviously people like that don't win friendliest in high school. I'm like you, I was on a mission. I exiled her away, but it's all subconscious, obviously, and it's all conceptual. So with parts work, we go in and we basically like free these parts of ourselves, we integrate them back. And it's just this incredible practice. It's like body based too. So you start to learn, how does it feel in my body when I'm embodying this part of me? And then obviously my background in tantra and embodiment, like the archetypes, like you're talking about, like with the villain and your client, how you're like, what would you wear? What would you move like, dance like, breathe like? It's kind of playing, it's just this giant play really, with these villainous parts of ourselves that actually hold so much power and confidence and capacity for life in general, and people not liking us and all these things. So basically with the practices that I'm going to bring to the course are like, how do you access that and integrate that back? So I'm excited. I think it's going to be like freaking killer. Yeah.
I am so excited to work with you. Excited, like I know how much wisdom that you have to offer from your own experience and from the studying and the work that you've been doing to like really learn how to articulate and share these processes and practices that you've been doing. So I think this is going to be such a huge gift for the people who sign up. I'm really, really excited.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Callie.
Exciting.